Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. This is the Inept General bringing you another video looking at the different factions coming up in the new DLC Thrones of Decay, which will be available at the end of the month. And today we're focusing on Elspeth von Draken and her Empire faction. We're going to be taking a look at her campaign mechanics and some of the units she'll be getting in this DLC. We won't be focusing too much on her lore. I've done a separate video about the tale of Elspeth. That will be popping up in the top right hand corner now, or you'll find a link down in the description below. Do check that out. It's a very nice long story about Elspeth and her role as the defender of Nuln. Let's begin by taking a look at her starting positions in the campaigns. For the Realm of Chaos campaign, she will be starting in Nuln, the city in which she has long resided, and unlike a lot of characters, she's actually starting in the same place in the Immortal Empires campaign as well. Creative Assembly have also released quite a bit in terms of the abilities Elspeth is going to have. We know, of course, she is a Lore of Amethyst user, so she'll have access to death magic. She also has the Pale Scythe, which is a passive ability that increases her spell mastery and resistance to spells the more she casts spells. We also know she has Death's Timekeeper. This is an activated ability that does damage to your enemy whilst healing you as well, a bit like Lifesteal or abilities we've seen in the game before. She's also known as the Dark Lady of Nuln, that gives her abilities both on the campaign map and in battle. On the campaign map, it gives her immunity to vampiric attrition. She also has a negative 20% cooldown for Lore of Death magic, and she has the ability Darkwalker. And Darkwalker is an ability she has to activate, but when she does, it gives her increased physical resistance and the Strider ability. She also, of course, has access to her Carmine Dragon, whose will she dominates through her mastery of the Winds of Saish. And the dragon has Coruscating Blast, which will be the breath attack, but does fire and magical damage. And while on the dragon, she will have Living Dark, which is a passive giving her more physical resistance and nullifies the magic attacks of enemies near her. Elspeth also has access to two main new mechanics that she'll be making use of during this campaign. The first of which is the Gardens of Morr, so let's take a look at how it will work. As part of her arcane learning, Elspeth spends time roaming between her black towers situated within the Gardens of Morr. Her magical storehouse travels with her, imbued with ancient magic of Fosric, to transport her forces and coveted artifacts. For those of you who don't know, Fosric was a character who existed a long time ago in the Warhammer world who's known to have built these floating towers. Friendly or neutral Empire-owned settlements known to Elspeth can be selected here to construct up to 5 Gardens of Morr. Once constructed, Elspeth and her army can travel instantly to a selected Garden of Morr via the fast travel button. The Gardens of Morr also offer powerful buildings viewed in the province overview panel via the button to the right of the building icons. Select any existing gardens for the options to deconstruct and make space for gardens at a different location. And then at the bottom we can see, teleports available and a builds available. Now, I've expressed my opinion on this before when we first got the news, but we didn't have the details of the mechanic. In the lore, Elspeth does have a black tower in Nuln built in the Gardens of Morr. For those of you who don't know, the Gardens of Morr are effectively the graveyards of the Empire, Morr being the god of death, prophecy, and dreams. She also is known to have another tower deep in the Grey Mountains. This is thought to be of use for her experimentation, probably when she doesn't want witch hunters or anyone else who will interfere with her work. As I said, Gardens of Morr are effectively the graveyards of the Empire. They exist all over the place. The Knights of Morr come from these temples to the god Morr, which is usually placed about or near these gardens. Elspeth doesn't build a tower in every single graveyard in the Empire. That's not what she does. She has a main home, and plus she goes to do secret stuff. Those are the two main areas. And it's not thought that she teleports between these two areas. She teleports once in the story of Tamakan, and doing that kills another acolyte of the Colleges of Magic. So she'd have to be willing to do human sacrifices every time she wanted to travel from one place to another, and that teleport was over a pretty short distance. It was from the middle of Nuln to the outskirts of the city, and it cost the life of a mage. So it's not something you'd think she'd be doing all the time. but at least they managed to limit the places she can magically teleport to 5. That's one constraint I suppose is good. I just don't think it fits her. You guys might like this. It'll make the campaigns a lot easier to handle in terms of getting around the Empire, but it's just a mechanic that doesn't sit nicely with me with her, especially when we look at other characters. Like, they have to give Wulfric an infinite teleport when they get round to revamping Norska, right? Because he's a guy who actually can teleport through the Warhammer world on his magical ship. So they have to give him that ability if they're going to give it to Elspeth. Anyway, sorry, that's a little rant. If we go on, we can see the cost of building these black towers is about 3,000 gold, at least initially. And we build one here in Middenheim. And there's the tower. It allows Elspeth to fast travel to this location, and it also provides some garrison for the place you're building it. They use the same mechanic as we've seen for cults or undercities in Total War Warhammer before. That looks like the model they're going to be following. And we can also see here that teleportation has a cost as well of around 1,500 every time you want to get anywhere, and you can't build them all swiftly. It looks like there's a cooldown on how quickly you can build the black towers as well by the icon on the left with the little hammer. 5 turns till you can build the next one. She's immune to diplomatic penalties from trespassing against this region owner, and it enables her replenishment in foreign territories, all armies in local and adjacent regions. So for her to get to a place in the Empire, roam about, help out in a time of need and disappear off, that's very thematic. I'll give them that. That bit is of her turning up, but not out of nowhere, usually on the back of her massive dragon. And 5 turns till you can teleport again in the network, which is a good amount of limitation. We also get a couple of buildings you can build with the black towers. You can build a militia of Morr, which gives you negative 25% upkeep on all armies in local and adjacent regions. Pretty handy. Global recruitment is brought down by 2, minimum of with 1 army in the region. Global recruitment capacity is increased by 1. It also provides a hefty garrison and allows local recruitment for your armies in the region as well. There's the Temple of Morr, which unlocks the recruitment of the Knights of Morr, the Elector State troops, and mercenary replenishment for Knights of Morr goes down as well. It gets rid of corruption and deals with vigor when fighting against undead factions, giving you a 20% boost there, as well as still providing decent-ish garrison troops to whatever faction you've built this on. And the third one is an Amethyst College, which unlocks the recruitment of Amethyst Wizards, +2 Battle Wizards, capacity, Winds of Magic Power Reserve, faction-wide +10, pretty good, so +50 once you've built all of the towers that you can, and +20 per turn Power Reserve for armies in the region. So pretty good and very strong boosts to armies and troops there from when you build the Black Tower. Next up, we have the mechanics of the Imperial Gunnery School. And you can see that you get schematics from winning battles, and you use these schematics in the Imperial Gunnery School to upgrade the units in the Empire that use gunpowder. On the left-hand side, we see all the units, so it's infantry units, cavalry units, and then we get into specific siege engines with the mortars, the cannons, the volley guns, the rockets, the steam tanks, and the land ships. So what kind of upgrades can we look at for these? Well, on the right-hand side, you'll see the upgrades you can get. In the case of the Gunnery Cavalry, we have thoroughbred steeds, saddle sack munitions, and interference tactics. The top one, thoroughbred steeds, is a boost to speed and a strider attribute for pistoliers, outriders, and war wagons. War wagons with strider seems pretty powerful. But that one, you see, doesn't have a number next to it on the left. The other two do. One has the number 1 and one has the number 3. At the moment, I'm not entirely sure, but we have to assume that the one without any numbers means you can be any tier and you don't have to have qualified for anything to be able to get access to that one. But I'm not 100% sure why there isn't a tier application. But we'll get into the tiers a little later on. I thought we'd go through and just see what upgrades were available in the Imperial Gunnery School to see what we could make of the troops we have. So taking a step back, let's look at the Gunnery Infantry. For the Gunnery Infantry, we have the Artisan Firearms Shot, which is a 10% missile strength increase for any infantry with any sort of gunpowder weapon. Quick load mechanisms, plus 25% ammunition for gunnery units, and a reload time reduction of 10%, and exploding bullets, exploding ammunition for gunnery infantry units. Sounds pretty good there. And let's go to the mortars next. And for the mortars, we've got extra gunpowder, which is missile explosion radius plus 25 for mortar units. Pretty big. Camouflage netting at tier 1, which gives them snipe and stalk, which could be huge, actually. The AI enemy won't ever react to them. And concussive blasts. And that disables that enables dazed contact effect, which reduces speed and melee defense for whatever unit the mortar hits. After that, we have the Great Cannon with weighted munitions, enables monstrous impact attacks, which reduces the speed and charge for any unit they hit. We have high pressure barrels, which is missile strength plus 25% for cannon unit. And we have grape shot ammunition, which we can switch in, which would be great versus infantry. That's a fantastic upgrade. We haven't seen cannons have that yet in Total War Warhammer. Moving on to the volley gun. We have rapid reposition drills, which means that it removes the ability for them not to be able to run, which is going to look a bit strange with them running along, and it increases their speed by 25%, and they get Wayfarer. And they have suppressive fire ability at tier 1, which enables suppressive fire for units, that slows them down. And we have penetrating shots. Projectiles pierce 200% more entities from the Hellblaster volley guns. That could be devastating. That's a tier 3 upgrade. For the rocket batteries, we get more rockets, adds an additional projectile. That's pretty good. More rockets, even more, adds an additional projectile for the Hellstorm rocket battery. And more rockets again, which is plus 20% ammunition for the rocket battery, and adds, of course, another initial projectile. That is great. That's a fun little upgrade tree for them at tier from the beginning, and then at tier 1, and then at tier 3, those upgrades. And that's all the upgrades we've seen so far. Unfortunately, we haven't seen the steam tank or landship ones, but that's exciting. Now let's take a look at what it takes to climb up the tiers for you to be able to access those higher level upgrades. So for tier 1, maintain a total of 3 units of the following type, handgunners, and we get 250 schematics when we get that one. Ensure the following building has been constructed, a shooting range. Perform 3 gunnery school upgrades, and then you get to tier 2. To complete tier 2, kill 1,500 enemies in battle with gunnery school units, and ensure the following building has been constructed, a foundry, and perform 5 gunnery school upgrades. That also grants us an ancillary enhanced scope, and it unlocks the Amethyst Armory tab. We'll get into that a little bit later. Tier 3, kill 1,000 enemies in battle with Amethyst units, and maintain a total of 3 of the following type, Amethyst Ironsiders, and buy the Buna Bombard ability. We'll again get into some of the more amethysty stuff later on in this video. Let's just finish off the tiers by looking at tier 4. And that is, ensure that the following buildings have been constructed, the Nuln Gunnery School, perform 7 Gunnery School upgrades, and use the Spirit Barrage ability. And that unlocks the Amethyst Landship, and Amethyst Artillery Purple Eclipse, and reduces some upkeep for you as well. So those are all the tiers and how you work your way up to be able to unlock further upgrades. Now we saw at tier 2, we unlock the Amethyst Armory. Now here we see the Amethyst Armory, and you're able to recruit 4 different types of troops here. The Amethyst Ironsiders, the Amethyst Outriders, the Amethyst Rocket Battery, and the Amethyst Landship. And these are all just souped up versions of the units you get in game, with magic coming into a lot of their weaponry. And they have different forms of attack. For example, the Amethyst Rocket Battery has this very cool effect. You can see landing on troops here, where when it lands, it sets up mini purple suns in terms of just devastating the enemy troops. You can do some upgrades here. They're all very expensive. And like in the normal Imperial Armory, you can upgrade each unit as well by the looks of it. And to the far right, you can see the bombardment abilities of magic that you can get in the Amethyst Armory. Now, a point of note here is that these guys went through a recent redesign, it looks like, towards the end of the development for Thrones of Decay. The reason for this, I don't know. Maybe they ran out of time, they couldn't do it. Or, well, maybe when we talk about the Ironsides in particular a little bit later on, there's a reason that Creative Assembly gives, not necessarily one that I believe, for why they look different than they do in the trailer. So we'll get into that when we talk about the Ironsides, but let's take a look. As you can see, these units look a lot more Knights of Morrish, with the skull helms adoring their faces, which makes a lot of sense for Elspeth. And then they went through this redesign for some reason, not entirely sure why. The helmets got changed, the Ironsiders got their repeater rifles taken away for some reason. We'll have to get into that a little bit later when we talk about the Ironsides, but it's just something worth bearing in mind that the redesign seems to have come pretty late. But all in all, that's it for the Imperial Armory. It's very much like Ikit's workshop in the theming of it. It's displayed a little bit differently, but it's a fun idea to give your gunnery units a boost for the Empire, and a fun mechanic. I like this one. It's a great little addition to Elspeth's campaign, and look forward to getting my hands on it. Now let's jump ahead to the units we're getting in the DLC, and we'll start with the legendary hero Theodore Bruckner, a giant of a man who plays a pivotal role in the story of Tamarkan, but he's really just a massive behemoth whose origins are steeped in mystery. No one really knows where he comes from. He's the champion and the executioner of the Countess Emanuel von Leibowitz, and apart from that, people just are scared of him and intimidated. In terms of his abilities on the battlefield, he's going to have the Hand of Judgment, which is the passive that gives Bruckner unbreakable when he's near an enemy character, and gives him the ability to execute them. He also has Titan Headsman, which is an active hex to the enemy's max speed and melee defense, as well as giving a passive leadership debuff. And he can get a couple of items known as the Liar's Bane and the Storm Lance. And he can also find the Baleful Amulet. This is an item that goes off when he dies, doing a good amount of damage, particularly to enemy characters. And moving on from Bruckner, we have the Master Engineer, who will be armed with a blunderbuss grenade launcher. It's a bit of a disappointment. I think there's mods out already for the engineers in the Warhammer world for Total War Warhammer 3 that allows you to pick what weapon your engineer gets. And it's really sad state of affairs when, the mod did it better, giving you the choice of the Hochland long rifle, the repeater rifle, or the grenade launcher. Would be a great little opportunity to have 3 different types of engineers, a bit more variety, rather than sticking us with the singular option. So, I don't know, I hope the mod stays alive, because that might be my preferred way of playing the Master Engineers. But these guys have few abilities that will be helpful, including Master of Ballistics, which is a passive ability that grants reduced reload time for artillery and war machines, while also increasing their accuracy. And it looks like they, along with their hero variant, the Normal Engineer, will get the ability to restock, but the Hero Engineer will be armed with the repeater rifle instead of the grenade launcher, and have access to Mercurial Shot, an active magic missile that fires a powerful flaming projectile with a high target penetration and an explosive payload, as well as the classic homing pigeons. Let's get on to the regular units, and let's start with the weird one, which is the Nuln Ironsiders. In the trailer, these guys were given repeater rifles. In the animations, in the breakdown we got for the campaign earlier today, their animation, as you can see here, slowed down, is them firing repeater rifles, so why take it off them? CA have said it's because they want to remain as authentic to the world of Warhammer as possible. The Nuln Ironsiders at release will be issued with master-wrought handguns, plate armor, and highly drilled firing discipline. I think they couldn't get the animations to work, or something along those lines. The authenticity argument holds no water at all. Why do it? You'd have gone through this during the concept phase. You'd have asked about lore clashes and stuff like that. You wouldn't go all the way through to development and make the unit, and then go, oh, what about lore clashes? Hochland long rifles weren't an independent rifle unit that would go around. They were just maybe a piece of equipment you could equip on an engineer. They were pretty rare. And the Ironsiders are all apprentice engineers who have parents who can afford to buy them the nicest armor. They don't get given this by the college. This is they're highly armored because in the lore they had the most money. So their parents could afford to buy them the armor, and if they could afford to buy them the armor, they could probably afford to buy them repeater rifles. So that's not true. Something's gone really wrong here, and the fact that earlier on we saw the Amethyst unit as well, completely redesigned. Oddly, despite having a huge amount of time to make this DLC, something's gone really strange, and I just wish they'd tell us the truth, and not like, just we ran out of time, or we couldn't get the animations to work properly, something along those lines. The as authentic as possible to the Warhammer world bit doesn't really hold up to me at all, especially since we get these guys, which are just handgunners now. There's no difference to them whatsoever. We get a steam tank, and those are 2 of the 5 units we're getting for the Empire, which are just variants of units we have already. So I think in terms of the package of units, this Empire DLC is by far the lowest. I mean, the Amethyst guys are great, but you're just adding new animations to already existing units. And you didn't even, I mean, you had originally changed them quite a bit, but maybe you didn't get to finish the armored helms in time or something like that. I have no idea what's gone wrong, but something in the Empire package went wrong somewhere down the road. We've got the Hochland long rifles, and these guys are just long-range snipers, good for opening up on larger targets or something like that, or taking out enemy generals. These guys are a fun choice and a good varied addition to something we haven't had in the game yet. So that's great. Moving on from then, we have the Knights of the Black Rose, a little-known knightly order. Knights Panther, Knights of the White Wolf, still waiting on those. But these guys are designed to be durable, staying in the combat cavalry, given anti-infantry, but not particularly inspiring in terms of a unit. They look pretty nice, but just a reskin of Empire Cav at the end of the day, so not particularly excited about Knights of the White Rose. Steam Tank Volley Gun. Again, they used the tech they managed to figure out with the Chaos Dwarves, and improve the steam tanks, and so they stuck a Hellblaster volley gun on one of them to make use of that. Again, not particularly inspiring reskin, if you ask me, I'm afraid. The unit I am looking forward to is the Marienburg Landship. This unit looks like a lot of fun. It will be towering over the battlefield as a mobile fortress. The Marienburg Landship launches light cannon rounds from its culverin and can crush opponents underfoot, while the crew remain on the deck above, armed with rifles to pick off any passers-by. With an active toggle ability, full power, the Marienburg cranks itself up to full speed, sacrifice its turning ability in favor of ramming speed. If things aboard the vessel are getting dire, the passive ability Abandon Ship will trigger, detonating the landing ship and wiping out anyone nearby. So a couple of unique mechanics there for the landship, and it's great to see them added to the roster of the Empire. All in all, the Empire package doesn't seem great from my perspective. I like the Gunnery School mechanic, that seems good. The Guns of Morn mechanic seems like it'll just make the game a bit too easy, being able to teleport around, and if you give it to her, you may as well give it to everyone. And the units for the Empire are the most disappointing part. Repeater handguns for the Ironsiders isn't all or nothing, but it would make them a bit more interesting. I like the Hochland long rifles, and I like the Landship, but that's about it really for the Empire. Sorry to end the video on a bit of a dour note there, guys. Let me know your opinions below, guys, if you guys agree with me or you're super psyched for the Empire. If you liked the video, do consider joining or subscribing, or even just dropping a like. Any little bit helps the channel. Got some exclusive content for our members already in the member section, including our ongoing Malice Darkblade series, and we are revisiting the old retro game Shadow of the Horned Rat. But as always, a huge thank you for watching, and I hope to catch you guys all on the next one. Alright guys, bye.